Good evening, CMST 430. My name is Brendon Favre, and this is my discussion 5 post for Chapter 7, Question 1. How and why do the authors differentiate between leadership and management? Regardless of what you personally believe, use and cite the text to support your response. Most of my responses are going to come from pages 193 and 194 of the book. On page 193, the book states management is about managing the path of the organization and about handling the day-to-day operations of the organization, whereas leadership, on the other hand, is about creativity, innovation, and vision of the organization. So to me, this means that managers are more focused on the day-to-day and possibly the short-term goals of the organization, whereas leaders are going to be focused on the short-term, the long-term, the day-to-day. They're more worried about training and developing the future leaders of the organization, stuff like that. Leadership is human communication, which modifies the attitudes and behaviors of others in order to meet shared group goals or needs. Leadership is less about simply getting goals accomplished and more about influencing the attitudes and behaviors necessary to meet the organization's goals and needs. The 4 themes that were discussed in this chapter were definitional, conceptual, functional, and behavioral. Definitional is leadership is frequently defined in terms of vision, inspiration, motivation, while management is usually defined in terms of operations. Conceptual is leadership encompasses management, but is seen more than just management. So you're fulfilling both roles as a leader. You're doing managerial tasks, and you're also leading people, whereas managers just manage. Next is going to be functional. Leaders should challenge their followers to do more and empower them to take chances and make decisions and innovate. Learn from your mistakes, delegate tasks. That's how we learn. And behavioral is managers manage their subordinates' work, whereas leaders lead by example. In management, you enforce regulations, whereas in leadership, you lead by example. In management, people don't follow you, they obey you. In leadership, people follow you, but it's by their own choice. For question 2, consider your career track and professional history. What are the most important leadership and fellowship approaches you should use, consider, develop as you prepare for future work? Again, cite the text in your response. So I have found that there's no real one leadership style that will fit everybody or somebody. I've found that you need to take different aspects from various leadership styles and kind of create your own unique leadership style. There's going to be things that you like from certain people that are going to work for you and aren't going to work for you. You can't just mimic somebody's leadership style and expect it to work for you. I would say mine would most closest resemble Hershey and Blanchard's situational leadership theory. Being that not all followers need the same task or relationship-based leadership, and that the type of leadership a leader should utilize with the follower depends on the follower's readiness. So, this is really going to come down to knowing your workers, who needs things broken down to the smallest detail, who needs constant supervision, who's the one who cuts corners, who's the one that that tries hard but just still needs a little bit of push, needs a little bit of guidance. You still got to kind of go back up and check behind him, and who can get stuff done with little to no supervision. Again, it comes down to knowing your people. Some factors that can come into play with this are going to be somebody's work ethic. I mean, let's face it, every organization is going to have some lazy people who are just going to do the bare minimum to get by, who are going to, whatever they can do just to earn that paycheck. And then you're going to have some that, another factor would be how long they've been with the organization. Obviously, if somebody's been there for a few years, they should know more than somebody that's been there for a few days or a few weeks. And leaders need to adjust their style based on the needs of their followers by directing, coaching, supporting, and delegating, found on page 199. Again, that comes down to just knowing your workers, knowing who you need to watch and who you don't need to watch, who's taking the initiative and who's not taking the initiative, who's more worried about being liked than doing their job or being a leader. For follower, I found that partnership discussed on page 211 is important. Just because somebody's in a leadership or a power position doesn't mean that they know everything. There are always ways to improve a task, and we should constantly be looking for ways to improve a task or processes. I'd always tell my soldiers, if you think you have a better way of doing something or approaching something, then please let me know. I'm one of those people that is always looking for a better way to do something, and, I don't have all the answers, so if you do, then please let me know. But the one thing is I don't want to hear complaining or whining. We're all in it together. We're all embracing the suck, and, I know it sucks, but complaining and whining is not going to make it any better. Also, something I found important was the doer that was discussed on page 213. I would always look for motivated soldiers who wanted more responsibility and who tried hard. Even if they may not be the smartest person or be able to do something exactly the way I want it done, if they're putting in the effort and they're wanting to learn, then I'm going to take the time to make sure that they get what they need. If that means staying late or coming out on the weekends or doing whatever, then I'm more than happy to do that for somebody who wants it, who wants to learn, who wants to advance, who wants to be that person. If you're going to put in the bare minimum, then I'm going to give you the bare minimum. For Chapter 8, Question 1, define and differentiate between identity, image, and culture. What are they and how do they work? Cite the text in your response and apply your own personal and professional experiences to illustrate your response. So on page 237, the book defines organizational identity as the internal perspective of members who identify with the organization and base their interpretations of the organization on internal information rather than what outsiders say. So they got the insider view of it, and that's what they're going with, not of what somebody outside or external stakeholders might say. This is done by organizational leaders coming up with a corporate message, strategically choosing the channels that most effectively reach the desired recipients, and then by measuring the results to determine success to guide future campaigns. Organizational culture emerges as members express their collective identity, and in so doing collectively from unconscious assumptions and meanings that shape everyday organizational life. An example of this would be in the military, we had something I like to call a mandatory fun days, where we would technically get a day off. It wasn't really a day off, but we would, you come in civilian clothes or your PT uniform, and you got to play sports, and we normally do a cookout. And the goal of this was to build morale and camaraderie within the unit and show that, it's not all hard work. It's not all getting yelled at. It's not all, high tempo work pace, that we can relax and have fun too. And, again, to build up that morale, because it got pretty low at times. Organizational image is the external perspective of outsiders who do not identify with the organization and base their interpretations of the organization on multiple sources. So an example of this could be a civilian's view of the military. You think of the military and you think, clean cut, disciplined, physically fit. And that's an outsider's view when that's not necessarily true. If you've been in the military, you still got undisciplined soldiers who aren't physically fit and who aren't very clean cut. The guy you always got to tell to get a haircut every freaking couple of weeks, and, that can't stay out of trouble and is drinking and driving or underage drinking, and who can barely pass a PT test. For question 2, discuss the similarities and differences between the organizational identity and identification. Discuss the role of concerted control in your response, cite the text, and use personal and professional background to give context to your response. So on page 240, the book defines organizational identification as a specific form of social identification or perception of oneness with the group, which is how you should act or conduct yourself within that group. So this would be like wearing the same uniform that identifies you as a member of that group. So in the military, again, it's all my examples, but we all wore the same uniform, and that identified me as a member of the military. So identification as a mental picture of oneself as intertwined with the group, such as you're standing within the group. So, people saw me as a soldier in the military. They saw the uniform. They probably, didn't really know what the rank meant or what rank was or anything like that. They just saw the uniform and associated me with being in the military, whereas I saw myself as a sergeant first class. I saw myself as a leader, and outside of that group, I saw myself as a husband. So, I viewed myself as a little bit more, whereas everybody else kind of, just sees the one thing as, okay, that person's in the military. Concerted control is when employees discipline themselves to conform to managerially approved values. This is discussed on page 241. The book provides the example of excellent customer service. So it's basically saying that you're going to strive to meet that goal that management put out, and you're going to strive to meet it. So, you don't want to have a dissatisfied customer, because that customer is going to be a return customer based on the service you provide to them. If you give them poor service, they're probably not going to come back. If you provide them excellent service, then they're going to be a return customer, and that's what you want. That's what the organization wants, so that's what you should want. And that'll do it for tonight's post. Thank you.